Welcome back to this endurance series. So today we're going to talk about mental strength, mental toughness, because like all the topics that we've covered so far, we've covered like nutrition, bike fit, like what kit to use, but you can have all those things, and if you don't have like the mental side of it like in tune, you're just not going to cope well. So I thought I would talk a little bit about it today, and I've also got a special guest who we're going to introduce in a minute. But yeah, so for me, I find that the more rides that I do and the longer rides that I do, I kind of get used to it and get used to that feeling of like that self-doubt, because I think we all have it. And I think at the start, I really did question, like, am I going to be able to ride this far? Because everything just seemed so big. And that all these people doing it, I was like, I just don't think I'm one of those people that can ride that far. But slowly and slowly, I built up the miles and the kilometers and all that stuff. And that gave me a bit more confidence. But I think, yeah, for me, the more that you do, the more experience you get. And then the more that you kind of understand how your body's working and when you're going to go through like the mental highs and lows. So even just knowing that has helped me. Knowing it's like, oh, actually, I know I'm going to get a lull. But when I've been riding for like 20 hours or whatever. So it's really important to kind of understand that. I've got the help of Emily Chappell. She's an incredible rider. She's very modest, but she has inspired a lot of people, me especially. I saw her at a talk at Rafa maybe 2-3 years ago, and that was what really kicked off me wanting to ride far, because she just really inspired me with what she was doing. She basically went and did Transcontinental, which is a race across Europe. It's about 4,000 kilometers, and yeah, she did it 1 year, and then had to scratch when she had to like leave the race, and then she went back the next year and won it. She was the first woman across the line, so I thought she would be a perfect person to talk to about all this. So here I am with the lovely Emily, and honestly, I've got to say, I've said it before, but thank you so much just for coming on and sharing some of your tips, because the stuff that you've done and just the stuff that you put out into the community, you're just a really amazing woman to have as an inspiration, just someone to kind of lead the way, because I know that it was you basically that's encouraged so many other women to do Transcon. So if you didn't know, Emily's done Transcon twice, won it in 2016, didn't you? You're so humble about it as well. You're like, yes, I did.
Well, I think one of the things I realised when I didn't win it outright, I was the first woman to finish, but you realise that winning, once you've done it, it's not as amazing as it feels, and it's less important than doing the thing. Like, my good memories from that year are of spending 2 weeks on the road. They're not actually of getting to the end and having won a race. I guess you don't know until you've done it, and a lot of people don't ever win a big race. Because obviously beforehand, I was like, oh my God, yes, if I win, I'll be an absolute hero. But then I won, and I thought, well, I'm the same person, so maybe it's not that important after all.
No. But you are the perfect person then to ask about, because we're going to talk today about mental toughness and how you deal with that when you're on the road and when you're on the bike on your own, and how do you deal with like either building mental toughness or just kind of getting over it. I mean, what tips and things have you got? Because the things, if you want to just briefly talk about the things that you've done if people don't know.
This is a problem I have when I'm hosting events and things. You get some, it's always the women. You say, okay, tell us what you've done. And they go, oh, I ride bikes a bit. And it turns out, they're actually an Olympian and a world record holder, but you wouldn't get anything of that from them. So to take a deep breath and put aside the imposter syndrome, I've done a lot of long distance bike rides. I've won a couple of endurance races, including the Transcontinental and the Strathpuffer. I lead the Loop, which is an annual charity ride, except this year, that goes around the Tour de France route, and it's amazing. I've written 2 books. So one is about my years as a cycle courier in London, and one is about long distance racing.
So just tell us a little bit about, because obviously in that book, Where There's a Will, you talk a lot about obviously the stuff that you endure, the things that you go through, and how do you kind of overcome and build that mental toughness?
So I think the first thing I'd say is that I don't know if toughness is actually the right word, because one of the best things I have learned is to listen to yourself, listen to your mind, listen to your body, and go with the flow of it. So, for example, if you're completely exhausted and your mood is at rock bottom and you're hungry and cold and tired and you're trying to battle your way up a mountain ignoring how you're feeling, you're just going to make things worse. It's going to get wrong, and you're going to get to the stage where you either give up or something bad happens and you fall off or get hypothermia or something. What I tell people to do, and what I tell myself to do, because I still go through this every single ride I do, is if you're feeling cold or tired or needy or anything, then either stop and deal with whatever it is and then keep going, or keep riding. But if you're feeling weak, ride weakly. You know, slow down, be pathetic, go down into your small ring. It's fine. Just keep moving. You will have stronger times. You probably had a stronger time this morning. You will again in a few hours. So I'd say it's actually more about endurance than about toughness, and about really, really knowing yourself as a rider. So I think a lot of people, probably everybody who's done a long ride, will at some point or another have had the feeling that, you know, I simply can't go on, and this is terrible, and I'm no good at this, and it's awful, and I hate bikes, and you get into that horrible downward spiral. Once you've been through that a few times, though, you do start to realise it's not the end of the world, because it can't have been the end of the world every single time, because the world is still here, I'm still here. So you think, okay, well, this will probably end then. It then just becomes a matter of getting yourself through it until it does, and making sure that when it does end, you're able to keep going. So I now am super aware of, for example, the times of day where I feel better or worse. I make the most of the good times and I get myself through the bad times. And also things like, you know, I know that if I'm riding in Europe, in the sort of mid-afternoon when it's at its hottest, I don't always even notice the heat that much, but I feel wretched. So I've learned to be a bit more aware of that and think, okay, if I'm feeling bad, it's not the end of the world, it's because it's hot, slow down. Or get in some shade or drink more water. And, you know, there's loads of other things about temperature, weather, or what's going on with you, you know, hunger, exhaustion, too hot, too cold, sore foot, and recognising the impact that has on, you know, every other part of your ride and your mood and your will to keep going. I think ultimately it's about preserving the will to keep going, because we all want to keep going. We all also want to stop a lot of the time. Yeah. And when you get into those really horrible holes, the will to stop sometimes starts to overbalance the will to keep going. So it's a matter of anticipating that and thinking, right, let's not let myself go there, because then if one more bad thing happens, that will mean my decision to quit.
And can you tell us a little bit about the invisible peloton? Because that is just, it's just, I read it in the book and I was like, wow, that's incredible. And then obviously with the Rafa 100 this year, that was like the whole kind of campaign behind it. And I honestly think it is phenomenal. Like, it's such a brilliant mental kind of trick, I guess. So just tell us a little bit about that and how you used it and what that is.
Okay, so the invisible peloton, to define it briefly, it's the group of imaginary people that you have around you when you're going through a hard ride. So people have different ways of doing this. You might literally imagine your friends, your riding buddies, your teammates riding alongside you or towing you up the hill or something. Or you might think about your mother or your teacher or your sister, or you might think about Dervla Murphy or Bodicea, or, you know, absolutely anyone that you find gives you strength in some way or distracts you. So, you know, sometimes I will think of somebody who inspires me and that fires me up a bit. Sometimes I'll think of someone who's just quite interesting and, you know, can keep my brain going for a while. So every now and then I forget how hard it is. Very occasionally I think about someone who is, you know, stronger than me and think, well, she'd be way up there on this climb. I am not going to let her beat me. Let's go. So it's sort of whatever works for you. And it's been, I think, particularly resonant now because of lockdown, a lot of us are riding alone or have been for quite a while. Some of us are now riding in groups a bit more. So we have to reach out to each other remotely.
How did you come up with it? What, is it just something that you've just always done?
I was going to say it's not just my creation. I think a lot of people, before I ever invented the invisible peloton, were doing this. It's kind of, in some ways, a natural thing to do. And the idea sort of came to me. I'd had proto pelotons before, but it was during the first Transcontinental when I was climbing Vontu in the dark, in the wind, on my own, very tired. And there were certain women I was thinking about to get me up that climb, and one of them was Hannah Nicklin, who sort of gave me the idea of, focus your mind on a particular thing to get you through each section of the challenge. And one of them was Sarah Uten, who herself has an invisible peloton, and I'd read things she'd written about a very difficult ride she had to do at the end of her Asia crossing when she was exhausted and couldn't see how she was going to get through it. And she was imagining all of her loved ones just around her, riding or running alongside her or paddling in their kayaks. So it's not an original idea. I nicked it from a number of people.
And that's what I think, that's the main take from it, is just do what you enjoy doing. So yeah, but honestly, thank you so much for coming to chat. I really, really appreciate it. It's really, really good of you. So I will leave a link to your book.
So much.
No, I love you chatting. Honestly, you've got so much experience, so much knowledge, and you're just a nice person just to sit and listen to and learn from, like genuinely. So I will leave a link to Emily's book in the description.
Awesome. I've got copies of my book. I can post it out if anyone wants to buy one directly from me, and I will deface it in some way.
Right, thank you so much. Right, I'll turn it off and then we'll say goodbye.
I might see if I can just get a shoebox. Hang on. I think my setup afterwards. It's so Heath Robinson.
That's better. Yeah, that's much better. Oh yeah, I like that lighting. Yeah, that's good. I just don't want it to be my big face here.